Heisei Godzilla, first appearing all the way back in December 15th, 1984. To this day, he has a large following and still appears in a lot of kaiju media. Most impressively, he is widely considered to be the most powerful Godzilla. And Monsterverse Godzilla, the modern-day titan that has ruled the box office with each of his movies. These two Godzillas are possibly the biggest kaiju debate out there. And with both of them having new films coming out, thanks to Godzilla x Kong and Godzilla vs. Megalon, there's no better time to cover this argument. However, we will be doing it a little bit differently. Instead of pinning them face to face, we will see who can hold up the longest if they switch continuities. In this week's video, we will be discussing and figuring out how far Heisei Godzilla can make it in the Monsterverse. So to truly answer this question, we need to set up a gauntlet of sorts for Heisei to traverse through. He'll fight these kaiju in this order to see where he stands in the Monsterverse. Scylla, Behemoth, Amulok, the male and female Muto, Muto Prime, Kong with his axe, Mechagodzilla, King Ghidorah, and finally Shinamura. Now it's time. Will Heisei clear and become the new Alpha Titan, or will he die trying? Let's find out. First up, we have Scylla. Scylla is a giant spider-like titan, standing at 341 feet tall, or 103.9 meters tall, already being taller than Godzilla himself, who is only 100 meters tall. But don't let height decide this fight. Scylla has a very small range of abilities, including temperature manipulation, which allows her to keep the ice caps cold, bacteria generation. This allows her to convert her nutrients into waterborne bacteria. Shell. Scylla's shell offers great defense from attacks, and she has the ability to leave her shell if she's stuck, though it will make her very vulnerable to attacks. Tentacles. Her tentacles are very strong and fast, even being able to knock over the almost 100,000 metric ton Godzilla. And Amphibianosis. This allows her to survive on both water and land. Now, how will Heisei hold up? Well, he would have some difficulty with all these kaiju, not because he's weak, but rather because he's slow. The kaiju in the Heisei era were fast at times, but none of them were agile. At least not as much as the Monsterverse. Scylla would do the same thing to this Goji as she did the last, wrapping her body around him. But this is where she would make a huge mistake, thanks to Heisei Godzilla's pulse. Unlike Monsterverse Godzilla, who can only pulse if he's injured or if he's extremely buffed, Heisei Godzilla at his base form can release a nuclear pulse. Now his pulse won't kill her, it more pushes his enemies back. This pulse would send Scylla flying backwards. But Heisei Godzilla doesn't know mercy. He would just shoot a beam, killing the arachnid. Next we have Behemoth. Behemoth will be more difficult up close thanks to his tusks, but Heisei Godzilla is somewhat smart, so he'll know not to get close. He would just stand from afar and beam, killing Behemoth quickly and easily. Next up we have Amulok. At this point, Heisei Godzilla might start to be intimidated due to Amulok's 121 meter tall stature, and also Amulok's weird assortment of abilities, which include telekinesis. This allows him to throw objects and part of his body at insane speeds, even being able to break off one of Behemoth's tusks. Camouflage. This is where Amulok hides in plain sight, hiding as a hill or an island. Toxin emission. This is where he can poison the water with ease. Psychic blast. This is where Amulok attaches onto an enemy and sends a blast to their brain, which is strong enough to kill some kaiju, or at least stun them depending on how powerful they are. Though it does take a lot of energy to use. And finally, adaptability. This is how Amulok makes his body, using the surrounding area. Now all it'll really take to kill Amulok is 1 or 2 atomic breaths. But, believe it or not, Amulok has a way to kill Godzilla, though it would be hard. If Amulok used his camouflage right, he could completely hide from Heisei, getting the jump on him, throwing himself at Heisei Godzilla, and doing as many psychic blasts as possible, which could end up severely injuring or even outright destroying Godzilla's second brain, immobilizing him, and killing him. But that's very unlikely. If I were to guess, that's probably like a 1% chance. So Heisei Godzilla moves on. Next, we have the Hideous Lovers, the male and female Mutos. These two would give Heisei a run for his money, thanks to their overwhelming size and agility. Heisei would of course pulse, but at this point it would only really affect the male Muto, since the female is just way too heavy for the pulse to really do anything. Heisei could still make it through as long as he stands his ground and stays aware of his surroundings, though he isn't the best at that. And the Mutos have an advantage thanks to their incredibly sharp claws, which would most likely cut deep into Heisei Godzilla, and just like Amulok, possibly injure his second brain. I still think Heisei Godzilla would make it through, though it would be very difficult for him due to his slow movement. Next, we have the Muto Prime. This is where Heisei Godzilla will be very overwhelmed, due to the Muto Prime's height and weight, coming in at 135 meters tall and 135,000 metric tons, which for reference is much taller than Destroya. Now, if this fight started from a distance, it would quickly be a very close-up fight, thanks to Muto Prime's burrowing, getting up close and unleashing an assault of punches and slams onto Heisei Godzilla. Now, if you didn't know, Muto Prime's punches are strong enough to break apart tectonic plates, though Heisei Godzilla could survive these punches to an extent. Now, stepping away from battle analysis and dipping into the scaling side of things for a second, Heisei Godzilla apparently slams Batcher so hard that he cracks the tectonic plates. And from what I've heard from certain scalers, is that attack potency is equal to durability. So if you could slam him that hard, he should be able to take these attacks. So overall, there isn't much Middle Prime can do, since if he got close, Heisei Godzilla could lift him and throw him far away, and then just beam as much as possible. So Heisei Godzilla once again moves on, though this would be very difficult for him. Next we have Godzilla's biggest enemy, Kong. And to add insult, Kong will also have his axe. For those who don't know, Kong's axe is made out of the dead remains of the other Titanus Gojitas, and we'll also assume it's charged up. Now this will by far be the hardest kaiju Heisei has ever fought in before. Kong is much smarter, faster, agile, and has been in many more fights. Plus him having a supercharged axe just to add on. Heisei will have to rely on his pulses for this fight, since he would be outdone in hand-to-hand combat, and Kong would just absorb any beams he fires at him, though I doubt it'll be useful, due to Kong's weight. The only way I can see Heisei winning this is if he gets a beam in, meaning he would have to get Kong away from his axe, meaning he would have to let Kong get close, and most likely let himself get stabbed by the axe, in order to get it away from Kong. Then and only then could he beam Kong a few times and kill him. There's one problem though. I don't think Godzilla is smart enough to think all that out, so the likelihood of him beating Kong is low. But even if he did, he's not making it past Mechagodzilla. Overall, Heisei made it really far, and would be a force to be reckoned with in the Monsterverse. Now before I end this video, I want to explain something, which is that these videos that you see on screen are not scaling videos. I'm well aware scaling-wise, Heisei Godzilla would sweep the Monsterverse with like no difficulty at all. Think of it kind of like Goji Center. For example, take my Could Kong Survive Skull Island video. Scaling-wise, Kong would make it through pretty easily, but I need to be realistic in these battle analyses. For example, though Kong does scale higher than Kamazot's, he has no experience with fighting a flyer, and has no good way to attack him effectively. So just keep that in mind before you comment that I suck at scaling. I hope that clears some stuff up. Stay tuned for next week's video to see where Monsterverse Godzilla makes it in the Heisei era. As always, keep collecting. Godzilla Guy out. See ya.